Hello, I'm Chris Solo, and welcome to the Fabled 42, where we build community through friendship, gaming, and chaos. You're watching Quests and Answers, and you can catch us live every Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific here at twitch.tv/Fabled42. But before we get to today's discussion, we're going to dive into our announcements. Everything that you see that's 3D printed in all of our streams is brought to you by Griffin Co. We are Vorpal powered. Our video and audio displays, player indicators, and digital dice are all brought to you by Vorpal Board. And please take a moment to take a look at the link down below. I do have an active Kickstarter going on with the help of Chills, Cody, who is in charge of production, and Ronan has helped me kind of put the body of it together. It is dungeon trays, so if you use Dwarven Forge, 3D Open Lock, Warlock tiles, I have the trays for you. They are separate trays for dungeons. You can build your rooms however you want and drop them on the table whenever you need them. This is the last day for Ukador Con. Very exciting. We had a very wild weekend of panels and games and emotions. Still haven't cried. Almost did. Still haven't cried. But the biggest thing about it are these new awards that we came up with called the Dorkies. So we have a lot of those awards in our Discord. So if you're not in our Discord, go ahead and fly over there and check it out. It's under the Dorkies column right below the general chat. And there are a lot of categories like Best Cosplay, Best Roleplay, Best DM Breaker, and so on. So you can go ahead and vote for your favorite ones. And we do have one more contest that, well, technically two. The GIF and pun contest is also there. You can submit those to the GIF and clip contest thing in our Discord. But also, the bigger contest where there's lots of giveaways is the mini contest. How many minis do I have on my back wall? How many minis do I have in containers off camera? How many minis do I have unpainted? And how many minis do I have total? I have about 25 people have submitted their guesses. A couple people got within 10.
What?
So you have to pick those awards and your contest numbers before the end of this panel. So at 5 o'clock p.m., I'm closing it down, and I have to get ready for Legends of Shao Gal. Because the closing ceremonies of Ukador Con will be right after Legends of Shao Gal, well, essentially right after Diane and her group is done, we're going to jump into the closing ceremonies, and I will pick the winners at that point, or announce the winners, rather. If you happen to hit the nail on the head with how many minis I have, your prize will be doubled. I'm giving away D&D books, very large minis, and other things. So that's all the things that I have to say. So let's get to our panelist introductions. Em.
Hi everyone, my name is Em, and I am a cast member and the lore keeper over at Blackwater D&D. You can find us at twitch.tv/BlackwaterD&D. We play our homebrew campaign Saturdays at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we also have our lore show, Chatwater, on Mondays at 8 p.m. Pacific. You'll see it tonight if you're around, but you'll be watching Legends of Shao Gal, so you should be doing that. We also do a variety show on Wednesdays where we do an advice show, a DM show, and then also a monthly one-shot. This month we'll be playing Werewolf with the cast, and I'm going to be GMing, so please come and hang out with us. That'd be super fun, and come hang out with our channel and find us on Instagram at Blackwater D&D. I don't have any personal social media, so you can just find me at Blackwater D&D, and I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Very excited to have you here, and I just dropped the link in there in the chat, so guys, go ahead and give them a follow.
Yes, please.
And their stuff is great. And I've actually absolutely loved having all of your peeps in our panels this weekend. It was a pleasure. They brought a lot of value to the content, so it was.
We've been so happy. Tim loved participating in the DM's panel about villains, and then Sean was in the creating compelling stories, and Matt was in the Matt in the map making one. There we go. So really so happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Awesome, Alicia.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Alicia. I'm Alicia Marie Bowdy on all socials. I'm a costume artist by trade, and I'm also really into fitness stuff. I am a Fabled 42 cast member on the River Break show that wraps up next Saturday morning is the season finale, so tune in if you're up on Saturday morning. And coming up next month, I will be in the Vault campaign, and that's going to be really cool because it's like a post-apocalyptic sort of Fallout system, so it should be really interesting and fun. So I'm excited for what's coming up. I'm really excited for this panel because it's something that's near and dear to my heart, and I'm really excited to be appearing with these people. Fabled 42 has made a huge difference in my life, especially we're all locked down and can't see our friends and hang out. But this has really saved me many times over this whole year. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Lizzie.
Yeah, I'm Lizzie. I'm the Lizzie LD on Instagram and Twitter. You can find me on this channel Wednesday nights in the realms of Ukador, playing Nafako. Yeah, I guess I joined this channel almost exactly a year ago. I think is when we were starting to kick off all that Origin stuff.
Oh my god!
Can you believe how much you've done in a year, Chris? Because I can't.
I can't
it's
either.
It's freaking incredible.
I'm really happy that you all helped me about 6 or 7 months ago, because yeah.
Yep, and yeah, you'll also see me in some of the upcoming Wizards mini-series as we continue that fun adventure. Yeah, it's been a really exciting year being on this channel, and I'll pass it on.
Mr. Sizemore.
I'm Chris Sizemore. You can find me at DMJarpo is my Instagram, which for those who know me and have seen me in other shows, I pretty much say I have the Instagram, I don't really use it. I apologize. I'm working on it. It's a work in progress.
Social media is hard, man. I understand.
Yeah, social media is really hard. You have to be on your phone and start putting up pictures and stuff.
That's why I got
anybody out there who wants to like take over my Instagram and just do it for me. I may take you up on the offer. Other than that, you find me DMing or LMing, lore mastering, the Adventures in Middle Earth game here on Fable 42 on Sundays, which will be next week.
Yeah, next week is our first every other week after that.
Yes, next week is our first every other week. It's pared down from 6 hours, which were long, to 4 hours, which is far more manageable. But it's an intense campaign at times. You got this guy here who plays, and this gal here skipping over GW.
I think we've had like 4 player deaths. We've had 4 player deaths by level 4. Yeah. I'm missing a hand.
Yeah.
3. I think it's 3. 2 player deaths. Only 2. Only 2.
I don't know. I'm just the whole thing's PTSD.
I know you.
I think you're counting your own as a player death because it was very close.
That's fair.
Your hand is gone. That's a player death for sure.
I'm a ranged rogue, and I can't shoot a bow.
Ouch.
It's great.
Dagger. All right, I'm sorry.
Other than that, I occasionally play in some other games going on with Fable 42 mostly. I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, after this, you can see why I have this because I shaved this off for the show, The Legends of Shao Ghul. I play a little gnome wizard, so stay tuned afterwards to check out the silly voice I've applied to this character.
Oh, I love that.
Love it.
Love it.
Nice.
Chris, is there someone next to you? I can't see. Is there someone? I'm sorry. At GW,
Hi all. I'm GW. You can find me on IG and Twitter under GW005. That is 2 B's and 2 zeros. There we go. You can also find me or my voice on Clarion Dawn. It's a really fun sci-fi drama audio podcast that I've been working on with Eric Braw and some really awesome voice talent that I have no business working with, but I'm there for some reason. It's really fun. I'm enjoying it. I'm having a good time. You can find me there as Samir, the poet engineer. I first started. I thought it was just going to be kind of like a one-off first episode thing, and then the scripts kept coming, and I was like, oh, okay, let's go. So that's really fun. So you can go to that website, clariondawn.com, or you can find it on any of your favorite podcast apps. Go for it. Lastly, you'll be seeing me very soon in the coming months with DMocracy. Me and 2 other DMs have been getting together once a month to create a world together. And next year, we will be collecting our own separate parties to run through this world together. So keep an eye out for that. It's going to be fun. Looking for players.
Where I put my name into the ring or my hat into the ring or whatever they are.
Gotcha. And I think that's it for me.
All right. Last but not least, Bree.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brianna. You can find me on Instagram and on Twitter at Brianna Flame. It's right down here. I'm not doing it either. GW, I guess. But you can also find me on the Adventures in Middle Earth campaign, which is DM5, Mr. Chris Sizemore, and also one-handed Chris Solo. But
I don't have my long sleeve today. I can't.
Oh, you can't hide your hands now, the little nub. But super excited about this panel. If you guys are looking for other content as well, I'm affiliated with the Initiative Order on Twitch and on Instagram. So we do some a little bit different, just a generic kind of a overview of different tabletop systems we're trying to do community games for. So absolutely free games if you join our Discord. We post them monthly, trying to go through things such as like Dragon Age, The Witcher RPG, Call of Cthulhu, and just exploring and having a good time making connections with everyone. But I'm so stoked to be here. So thank you.
Oh my god, the chat just said solo-handed. That's ridiculous.
Oh my gosh.
That's going to stick.
I can't believe that didn't.
Yes.
I can't believe that took
Yes.
so many months to
Well
get
done,
there.
chat. Well done.
Thank you, Longshot. Thank you. You know what? We played video games a long time ago. Yeah, that's all right. So today we're talking about the art of roleplay. So we have about 50 minutes. I have a few questions to start this off. Chat, if you have any questions, please just tag me or Fable42 in the chat, and I will throw it into the mix. Because we have so many people and such limited time, we'll try to keep the answers as short and brief as possible. But we all know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it in a different way. Why is roleplay important to your tabletop games?
Oh, good question.
Because it brings it to life. It brings
does.
the immersion.
It's the driving force between any type of development, in-game, at the table, and outside the table.
Yes. It creates the story.
It's your chance.
The players are the story itself. The DM is just kind of scene setting, but without the interactions, I think the story could be a little flat.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a game, and you have the stats, and read it off, and it's a game. But when people start coming into character, that's what adds the layer, and it adds the layers and gives it more facets. It's just more exciting to be a part of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Although I do want to throw in that I think sometimes people watch games where everybody's role playing like really well, and they get intimidated and think that they can't do it.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is also too about empowerment, because something that I think we as role-playing gamers get out of being in a tabletop setting is like I'm not a tiefling grave cleric who's out to save the world, but dang if it feels good to be one. So when we're sitting in this tabletop, like this immersive experience where people are not only like supporting your growth as a character and a player, but they're invested in you and you're invested in them, that kind of dual relationship just feels really nice. And I mean, you get to accomplish things in RPG games that you never get to do in most lifetimes.
So true. And
Yeah.
it's also, in my case, in many people's case actually, it's very therapeutic to kind of fall into it.
Yeah.
Like if you would have told me over like maybe 3 years ago, because I was in the game with Chris for 2 years, if you would have told me back then that at the end of this game you're gonna cry because one of your make-believe friends are gonna die, I would be like, you're crazy. Like really, it's just a game. But lo and behold, one of my closest friends that I was, we were playing together for the very beginning, died and decided to stay dead for reasons, and I just bawled, and it felt good because of other things in my past.
Well, the best part about that specific moment was that wasn't even driven by me. I mean, yes, I killed 4 of the 5 players in the party, but the fact that she didn't want to come back because of reasons for story, and it just made sense, like that was powerful. I mean, the first thing that I told you guys, and I told Lizzie and the new group as well, is like, I'm gonna make you laugh, I'm gonna make you cry, I'm gonna make you be angry, I'm going to touch on all the emotions to make this real. That was a speech that I gave. And I remember in the beginning it was just a wild experience to slowly get to that, right? Like how many times we had conversations with the other people in your party that weren't as into the role play as you were. So that being said, and kind of piggybacking off of what Alicia said, when people watch these streams, you watch Critical Role, table full of friends for 10 years, been playing a game forever, they're all professional actors, and their improv is on point. Guess what, everyone? When you walk around every day and you stub your toe or someone trips and falls and you go to try to catch them, that's all role play. That's all improv. You do that every day. You are yourself. You're being yourself. You're embodying that. But the question I'm going to ask is I've had the privilege to play with all of you. Some of you are DMs, some of you are players. I've watched a few of your games. What are some tricks? Because I know that you're all very strong role players. So what are some tricks for you to use in your games as a DM or your games as a player to help inspire or help other people who are not that strong at roleplay?
I mean, I think one of the most helpful things you can do is just, when you're in those RP moments, reach out to them, ask their character what they're thinking. Because a lot of times it's sort of, a matter of them not wanting to take initiative. They're uncertain on putting yourself out there. And just so finding those moments of like GW is, I think, always so great at that of being like, hey, why don't you do this specific thing that we need to do in the roleplay part? How about your character does that? And asking this in character. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. You're just sitting there and you say, indeed, Charlotte, what is your opinion on such and such? And so Charlotte's like, oh, me? I can get in and start role-playing too? Okay. Yeah. You open the door for them and let them... I also think if you yourself are silly, then the other people around you will be more comfortable being silly. The DM, I think this is more important for the DM than the players, but also with the players too. It kind of sets the tone and the expectation, and that this is an open space for you to just let loose and go ham.
Yeah, definitely.
Go ahead, GW.
No, you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think I've had the privilege of, I guess I'll use the term shepherding a couple people into the RPG setting and being like one of the people that they'll play RPGs with for the first time. And I think something that I always try and remind folks is that there is like show don't tell. Rather than telling me that you're going to go do this, show me how you do that. Get descriptive. Feel free to like throw in all of the adjectives that you want and use like your face and be present with those people. Also, one of the biggest things that I think I've learned through being a role-playing gamer and diving into like RPG theory, because I'm a big nerd, is the sense that your character's background is not the same thing as their personality.
Yes, preach.
So, you're so welcome. So just because your character may have had a really terrible, horrible upbringing, and they're this, I'm going to use the typical like edgy rogue, but like that doesn't mean that your background doesn't necessarily dictate who you are in that moment. And that's so true for humanity. And like, that's what we're doing in RPGs. We are replicating and like by proxy, just being just humanity in RPGs. So like be human, and that's totally fine. Roll with failure, make mistakes. And I think that would probably be my biggest things about how to like shepherd people. It's like show don't tell, and you don't have to be everything your backstory says you are.
Exactly. And to add on to what everyone says, also like touch base with your players. Be like, how did you feel when I kind of like brought you in? Was that too pushy? Was that too much? Should I lighten up? Did that make you feel uncomfortable? Just be very open, and talk to them to kind of gauge where they were or where they're going to be when you try different things, just so everyone's comfortable and everyone kind of knows what's coming pretty much. So they can kind of prepare themselves for it.
I would say that one thing that I really do when I'm trying to create a character is I feel like everybody in their core personality has facets. Like how often in your life do you get to walk around like as a really extra wizard going, I'm going to cast a spell and throw it. Like, you know what I mean? This is your one opportunity to be.
I do that regularly.
To be that person. Yes. You're at the supermarket. I paid $20 for this.
Exactly.
You get to explore facets of your personality, like in a really sort of safe place. You know what I mean? Another thing I like to do is, like, if I have a character, I'll be like, okay, what are some characters I've loved in pop culture that I want to make this character like? So in Chris's Wizards campaign, I have a character. Her name is Astra. and she's a wealthy servers, and I sort of modeled her in my mind after like Elle Woods and Regina George. So she's so like, what are we doing here? You know what I mean?
Threw a shoe at somebody. Yeah, I mean,
Get it.
And
so you can like do that. So it's like you can either like explore facets of her personality, or you can like just jump into like a character's skin that you like from television or pop culture and sort of be it.
Exactly.
And I think, one, and sort of like if you are feeling anxious and you like, you don't have to be profound, you don't have to be over the top. Like coming from an improv background, like one of the things that my teacher always would say is don't try and be funny, be obvious. Like what is the next obvious thing that would happen? If this is true, what else is true about yourself and about like what's happening in the scene? Like there's a lot of comedy from just like pointing out obvious things, or like, which is honestly what the comedy of Nafiko's character is entirely about. But why is that? But just by being like natural, just like playing to the top of your intelligence, you can build a lot, and just being yourself in this situation. I mean, you don't have to like build someone crazy. You don't have to go everywhere, but just be something authentic. That also works.
I mean, with Nafiko specifically, who she plays on Realms on Wednesdays, the very simple fact that you walk around saying that you're a year old because your backstory is very complicated and you have been reborn in a sense. The fact that you're just walking around saying that you were you're a year old, it literally is just like walking into a room and just throwing a wrench into the room, and everyone's like, what? Like there's this huge creature walking around just acting all very innocent, but your personality fits that, and it just flows. Because I just watched again the first episode and it was ridiculous. But which will be on Patreon soon, by the way. I totally just derailed my question. Oh God, what was it?
About being obvious.
It was about being obvious, but it was about getting into character as well. So like, I love that Em, you were talking about just show it. I mean, GW, that used to be one of my lines. Remember in the beginning, I'm like, don't tell me, show me. And I realize, that's what I was gonna say. So I realize that's a little too forward for some people. So my biggest suggestion, I do this for a lot of our DM or just D&D panels, is if you have the ability to, we all do. It's 2020. Let me rephrase this. Record your sessions. Post up your cell phone, record your sessions. You don't have to share it with anybody. It's for you as a DM or you as a role player to go back and watch the footage. I'm a player and I do this really cool thing. Everyone laughs, DM laughs, GW is shut down. Whatever I did not include him into this, right? I pushed him out because I did something, probably not right. But as a DM, it's huge. It's a powerful tool. You go back and you watch this footage where I'm this shopkeeper and I'm doing all these things, and I go back. I'm gonna put Eric on blast, but I would see that Eric was totally disengaged because I was all about role playing with GW because like I like role playing. We're role playing. We're doing all this stuff, and we didn't include Eric who's sitting at the tavern. So later on, then I start to pause what GW is doing in the shop. I go back to the tavern and then I role play with him and I try to like pull him out of. I'm just gonna go drink. Cool, you can go drink, and then you can go start a bar fight, or you can stop a bar fight, or the bartender's gonna flirt with you, right? So like you start to add these other elements, but. So the question that I was going to ask, that was just a squirrel, but the question I was going to ask is what are some good tips that you can give for experienced or new players out there that get into that character, to like embody that character, to make that character kind of like a part of yourself? That's what I tell people a lot of times. Like when you make a character and you've never role played, just make a character that's like you, just better or different. Not better. That's not the right word. You make him different. Because then it's got a lot of bits of you, right? And then all of a sudden it just feels more like Lizzie was saying, it feels more natural. It feels more, it's not so forced. Like I don't walk in the room and be like, hello, citizens. That doesn't feel right, right? I walk in like, well, hello, everyone. How is everyone doing here? Like, it feels more like me. And then that lets me get into the role play. But so what are some of your tricks and tips to get into character?
Can I jump in? I'm a therapist by trade. So this comes from a therapy technique. It's called values work. So if you look up online, a list of values, you can often find some that are like 200 lists. They're often, descriptive words like power, creativity, wisdom, love, all of those kind of things. What I'd really encourage you to do is kind of take yourself and take your character, and go through that list and find 10 that speak to you. Like gut response, no thinking about it, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And you might have to be pretty brutal with like your cutting down to get only 10. But do one for yourself and do one for your character. Because if you know what drives your character and you know those values that sit it close to heart, it makes it really, really easy to respond based on those 10 things that you know your character holds very near and dear. So like, you know, I think about the character that I play in my campaign. Play a tiefling grave cleric named Nepentha, Lightkeeper. And one of Nepentha's biggest things that she values is tradition. So Nepentha loves tradition. She comes from a long line of priestesses who have done the same thing the same way for thousands of years. Me, I could take or leave tradition. So that's like a big difference. And so if you can find what's similar between you and your character, but also find those stark differences, it can often make stepping into them a little easier. And drawing that line too between you and your character as well. So that's my hot tip.
That's fair.
That's an excellent tip.
Hey.
I'm writing that down. Okay, well,
Actually, kind of when you go into and start putting your character together, I started playing D&D super late compared to most people that I know. So I came into D&D when D&D Beyond was a thing already. So when you're building your character like online, they actually give you like sections where you can come up with tenets for your character that help you to get, like, if you need help building a personality for your character. I will say this, I find it easier to be more extreme personalities. Personalities that are completely like diametrically opposed to mine in one shot. If it's a long campaign, then the character's personality has to be a little bit closer to mine. And I'm like a total troll in general. Not like I'm a troll. Every time I try to create a character that's not a troll, they end up somehow going back to being a troll, especially for a long campaign. But I do think it's easier for a one shot to be like an extreme opposite of who you are. Like if you're a really nice person, to play like a drunk a-hole is going to be hard for you, to maintain over time. Yeah. You want to have fun though. You want to have fun with the character. So coming up with a character that you kind of enjoy being or stepping into their skin.
I think that's the most important part. Is like, that's was it Schweitzer? Like, if you don't love what you're doing, why are you doing it? Right? If you love what you're doing, you'll be successful. Period. Like, why would you role play something that doesn't make you feel good? Right? Like that just doesn't.
No.
Yeah, exactly. People do it. People do it all the time, but it doesn't make sense to me.
And a little something to add that in no way, shape, or form is going to be better than what these ladies said, because that was you worded it perfectly. But just to add on to that, for someone just starting out, I would say baby steps. Work on little things like how would they greet someone? How would they kind of talk to someone? Are they timid? Are they more loud? Just kind of like small steps to get to the end result. Like, Chris said it already, like one of his, main activation codes when he's Viago, he goes, "Hello there," or whatever. Like, hello. That's his name. Like, when he says hello, like, all right, here comes Viago. Like, that's his like activation.
Well, that's to get the voice too. Like there's key words to get the voice. And a lot of times I go to hit mute and I don't, and you guys see me go, "Hello," just trying to get the voice, and I'm like, fuck. But
these fun phrases.
But it
so
does
important.
get you. But it does get you in character, though. That is, yeah.
I do that. I do that as well. So I feel you.
So don't be afraid to slowly wade into the water if that's best for you too. Everyone's different.
I see a question in chat.
There's a few. Wolf had mentioned, says Lizzie should mention the nice exchange students from the Star Wars game.
So I think this was probably going back to what I said about like doing what the next obvious thing. So they were trying to convince some stormtroopers to let them go past in the Star Wars game. And just one of them like walked up and like thanked them for their service and then rolled a check and was extremely successful on their charm check. And so it just became this, and then this happened like a couple more times. So it just became, the stormtroopers started like messaging ahead about these really nice grad students who were coming through, and you should like let them all through because their cover story was they were infiltrating this place because they were archaeological grad students. Yes. And so, just like looking for like, what is the reason? It was so yeah,
Well,
it was great.
That feels real though when you think about it. Because I'm a 12-year vet, and I've been out since 2012, and I do not associate myself really as a vet that much anymore. But when I was in, someone would say that, even if I was having a great day, all of a sudden be like, "Thanks." And then I would walk around with like a chip on my shoulder. So I never even thought about that. With all the guards and all the people who just have these shit jobs in the games that we play, like, hey, thanks for what you do. Oh, she said thank you! Like, you just want to like freak out.
Like,
and,
that's exactly what happened. Like, I would appreciate that. Oh my god, you're so nice. And they got a small advantage when they had to fight their way out of there because they were so confused why the nice grad students were
like,
suddenly fighting.
Oh, that's perfect. Oh my god, that's so perfect. That's so perfect. Okay, so there is another question. Where to go? How far do you guys go with your character? Immediate family, grandparents, cousins, uncles, teachers? Who was in your past to develop your present?
Ooh.
As a character?
As a character, yeah.
Oh, wow. I'll let someone go. Let's go
GW
first.
and his 15 pages of backstory was phenomenal.
GW, I'm high-fiving you from over here because I'm the same.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing is there's a lot of DMs that don't want big backstories, right? And like, why not? Like, and that's one of the things. Like us as a DM, like you try to get more just so then the person gets a little bit more in character. Like, yeah, my family was killed by orcs, and like, who were they before that, right? Like, yeah, they were killed by orcs. Nobody cares about that. Like, if you go about this from, like, a video or a film thing, right? We watch something, and the very first scene is, like, my family was killed by orcs. We have no emotional attachment to that, because we have no idea who they were prior to that. So, like, trying to just ask questions as a DM, you know, to be like, hey, what else? And GW did really good, too, because he would always talk with the players, too. He was, like, my pocket DM as well, like, always trying to get, like, things moving and everything else. But you know, that's a really, really good question, and I love it, right? Because, yes, I'm a chaotic, neutral, chaotic, evil DM because I like to use your backstory against you.
I like how you say neutral a lot. Come on now.
Because I am neutral. Because I'm doing it like I play even keel because it's about the story and I'm even across the board. Evil, I would just kill all of your family, and then you would have no chance to redeem them. That's evil. Right?
No, hey, I mean, in fairness, I had a very tragic backstory when I came in late to this campaign, and he, like, turned it around where it was like, he could have killed all my family, but instead I got to save my entire family. And I was actually expecting most of them at least some of them would have been dead, but they were pretty much all alive.
And I only did one really bad thing to you, GW. It was really bad, and I'm not going to talk about it because we talk about it in all the panels, but that was your motivating factor as a character to drive you to be the leader who you ended up being. Truth? Yes, right? Like, that was awesome.
No chance for him to say that.
I'm getting on a tangent real quick. So, but the thing is like, so when we talk about roleplay, right, and we're talking about all these amazing backstories, when you have a player that is very self-conscious or very shy, you beef up their backstory, so then they have a lot of things to talk about, and then you insist. It's up to them. You insist that, like, have your character in the game be shy. Be timid. So then we talk about we're going to talk a lot about this next week during our mental health and tabletop
so
stuff.
Excited.
But, good.
But tabletop is therapeutic. I mean, I know GW and I we've talked literally. I almost miss it. Like he's like my younger brother all the time. We would talk every week at least 2 or 3 times about what happened and what's going to happen, right? And that was therapeutic, right? And it was like a year into the campaign where I realized that I was putting these guys through my demons as a vet, and they were helping me fight my demons. That's therapeutic, right? But if you dial it back to just the basics, I'm super shy. Guess what, guys? I get nervous every stream. This has been 3 years.
Really?
I am terrified every stream. And then the second that my mouth opens up and I'm in the DM character, then it's forget about it. Then I black out for 3 hours, and then something crazy happens.
I think that shows, like, when back to your question about, what do you do with your backstory? I think it's about, like, if you're not the person who's going to write that 15-page backstory, and if you're writing a 15-page backstory, please be flexible with it. Give your DM a break. Flexible with it. I think that it's about having stakes. That your character has to give a hoot about something, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be people. Maybe it's a place. Maybe it's a thing. Maybe it's an ideal that they have for this self. Make them care about something. like they're, you know, like, and
Yes.
you know, maybe you're not the person to just like, you know, come up to the campaign and be like, this is what I care about as a character, here, party, take it or leave it. But like work with your DM about that kind of stuff. And if you don't know that backstory, super fine. Like backstory can be something that's developed as like a present and forward rolling thing. Constantly talk to your DM about it, because spoiler alert, most DMs are just out there cheering for you and want you to be happy. So like work with your DM. They want to help you tell your character's story. So give your character something to care about. Because then they'll either take it away or give you more of it or change it. And that's good storytelling.
Bree, you were going to say something? Or it looked like you wanted to say something?
Oh, well, personally, just kind of getting back to like the family question, I think it may differ person to person. I myself, as a human, value family to a very, very high degree. And that's something that was very therapeutic about my very first character is I had no backstory whatsoever for her. I was completely detached from her until a year in. We started going, okay, we're actually going to delve into what her family is. And it got to a point where, unfortunately, her family was no longer with her. But that was an opportunity for me to kind of explore traumas that I had familial-wise in game that made it all that more evident that when I go to my next character, I'm going to make sure I have those stakes, like Em was saying. So I know exactly where at the core of my character I'm going to be driven. So at least...
Yeah, and I want to throw in sort of, I think having a relationship to at least one other person in the party when you're starting, especially if you're new or like a more timid personality, really helps bring you out of your element, because if you have like some strong bond with someone, then you have a reason to talk to them. You have like a point of view about somebody who's there at the very least. You care if they're hurt, they care if you're hurt. They're someone you can confide in and ask about events. So like, I think especially if you're new, try and find that person. And like, I think usually people are excited to have those relationships.
It's so funny that you say that, Lizzie, because I like that's something about me that I have never put into words. I remember when I played with you in your home game. And
that's actually the incident I was thinking about.
I didn't even, I don't know. It just kind of, I just did it or whatever. But we had a very, very new player. It was her first time playing. And I was the younger one of the group. And I was just like, in my head, without even saying anything, I was like, all right, you're going to be my big sister. Like, we have backstory. We're just going to go for it. And us kind of having that bond, it was like she learned how to play even more to protect me. And we were like protecting each other from dying. So it's making that bond like this just from the very get-go or as you go really will bring another person in, because they have, like, you know, everyone was saying, something to care about that's like not just, you know, jewels or whatever, but it's like a person that's right here. So
Right.
Yeah, we have some other really good questions, but I want to just wrap up the backstory thing. So again, this is just a GW party that we're talking about right now, because GW would do so many amazing things because of his backstory, right? So we're talking about roleplay. We're talking about bringing in people who aren't that strong with roleplay, or they're trying to get there, right? Or maybe their story isn't that strong, or whatever the reasons are. GW, to date, has been the best player that ever incorporates all the other players into the game. Because what he does is he goes, hey, have you met my sister? And then he pulls them and he introduces them to the sister. So then all of a sudden, you're bringing that real person in to care about your fake sister, right? And then when I kill your fake sister, then everyone's sad and angry. I get that. So that's why that all happened.
There it is. I get that.
But
I feel, he's like that even in chat.
I have to build you up and then I bring you back down. No, I'm sorry. No, but seriously though, that's the best way. We talked about this in some of the panels this weekend. It's about the immersion, right? So like the six of you are in a party. If each of you have your isolated backstories and you don't really talk about it and you don't share it and you don't bring that in there, then it's six individuals having a story opposed to a group having a story. And that changes from like being, it literally, it's the difference from playing baseball or playing soccer, right? Like baseball, it's a bunch of individuals doing what they're doing. They're all assholes and they just play the game, right? But then you have team sports like soccer and football where they work together to do something, right? Baseball's not like that. So we don't want baseball in D&D. We want, a team sport because you guys are a team. So it's like about incorporating all those things. But
and
yes.
I think
So true.
DMs who see that, like when they see you, creating stakes with another character and forming those bonds that bring your characters together, they're going to take that and weave that into the story. I think about in our game right now, my character, never saw herself as ever being involved romantically with someone and was like, this is not for me. I don't think I could ever do that. Ended up falling in love with one of the other party members, and like lo and behold, 60 somehow sessions later, their stories are like intrinsically entwined and their backstories were linked, and like your DMs notice that kind of stuff, and they want to help you tell those stories and flesh that out. And I think as experienced role players, one of our jobs is to like not only throw the ball to those, if we're following the sports metaphor, I love sports, like throwing the ball to our other players, but being willing to catch the ball when it's thrown to us, especially by those players that might be a bit more shy or might not be as engaged, because like that provides so much reinforcement to them. Be like, I'm here ready to catch this ball, and I'm going to interact with you in a way that makes you feel comfy and safe. So I think that that's so important too.
Just the way that you said that, I can tell you're a therapist because you make me feel like all warm and fuzzy. That was
That's the goal, making everyone feel warm and fuzzy. Yes. Yeah.
So we do have another question. How much do you prepare in advance for your campaign? Are you flexible with dice rolls, or are you flexible with dice? So I mean, I can interpret this in DM or player things. Like, so as a player or a DM, how much do you prepare in regards to role play with your character? Like, do you sit in the room and just do a voice for a month, and then when you get into it, do you just kind of compile it all on paper, and then session 0 you just kind of lay it out and see where it lands?
This is going to sound.
Go ahead. Who's talking?
Right,
go ahead, Brian. Go.
Thank
Everybody's
you.
got ready to go.
We're all like, we have ideas. This is awesome. One thing I love to do, and this is going to sound silly, I create playlists for every single character that I make.
Oh, that's awesome.
I love putting playlists together because music to me is just like a way of getting into a mindset for stuff, regardless of what you're doing. So that's one thing I really like doing personally. I just wanted to throw that out there really fast.
Love that.
No, that's great.
We usually hear GW's playlist when he logs in.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people. Oh, sorry. You go ahead, Chris.
I muted it today so you wouldn't hear it. It's fine.
I want to listen to it now. Now I'm curious. I want to hear the playlist. Get me inspired. For me, I'm probably more of the let's try out a voice and see if I could do it, and then go into something else beyond that, or I guess it starts with a voice, and then I record myself and I say, well, I sound awful, I'm not doing that. Or maybe it's a voice I want to try to learn or something. This is just me personally. I like to do voices and silly voices. You don't have to do that. You can, there's like 3 tenets to role playing well, I think, and voices is just an aspect of one. There's dialogue, there's descriptions, and there's one other tenet. I forgot what it was. Anyways,
dress up.
Actions, descriptions, and dialogue. Those are the 3 tenets to role playing, and voices are just the one aspect of dialogue. You could do a different style of speaking and speaking your normal voice, and it would still be a different character. Anyways, I investigate, to go pull it back to the same question. I investigate the voice first, and then from there I tease out different aspects that I like, and start working on a backstory and find a picture that might fit with the voice and use that to inspire me for the character. But it all is rooted in, do I want to try this out voice thing? Or it might be, if it's not voice, then the other thing I look at is, I want to try out this class, and what would this race or class sound like to me? And then I make a voice, and then I continue the teasing out with backstories and stuff.
I love that process. I think something that I do with around voices is like I talk about Neppy all the time because she's the character that I played the most, and live with the most, I suppose. But Neppy has a voice, but didn't start off having a voice. And, you know, I was watching, I think, The Crown on Netflix at the time, and I realized I was like, oh, Claire Foy as the queen has this tightness to her voice, this sense of propriety and this sense of like needing to be proper all the time. And I was like, that's Neppy. Neppy needs to be proper all the time. So it started off as like changing my mouth, the way I was talking, to, you know, to have that tightness, to embody that sense of like very rigid, very structured, very centered on tradition. And then I tried it out in my car while I was driving for like a month. And, you know, it's like my register is a bit lower, but Neppy's voice kind of talks like this. She's very tight and she spits up here. So it's like it's pulling it tightly. And you don't have to do a voice to role play, but just it should feel different when you're like stepping into your character. There should be that a little bit of a divide between you and your character too.
Little separation, so you can try out like different feelings, and like Chris was saying, sort of work through things. For me, for every character, I don't care if it's a one shot or a full campaign, I will have a backstory. I will have a look, and like Chris Sizemore was saying, so if I'm playing in my head, I'm playing a half-orc barbarian already. I have sort of like how that character sounds in my head. And for me, for some reason, orcs always have like a really sort of clipped German or like Ukrainian, Russian accent. That's what they sound in my head. So when I play an orc, that's how she sounds to me. But some people will play an orc and she's like, oh my God, how you doing? Nice to see you. It just doesn't fit for me. So for me, it really is the voice. If I decide to go there with the voice, I won't, if I, like you guys were both saying, if I can't do a voice well, I'm not doing it. And I would advise everybody out there, if you really don't feel comfortable with a voice, don't like force yourself into it, because it can be difficult to understand and like get into character if you're focusing on getting the voice right. You can't relax and have fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
So go with things you're, like Crystal was saying earlier, go with things we're more comfortable with, ease into it. Voices, like you're already focusing on the game and math and your character's personality and what you have to do, and your DM saying roll initiative for the 15th time. The last thing you won't have to worry about is, would an English person say this with a guttural sound or what? So yeah.
Exactly. For me, I like my thing, like I went to school for this, is my specialty is character development. I love creating characters, backstories, the works, how they look, what they wear, where they're from, who their friends are, all of it. That's just what kind of excites me. So, and it's something that I can do because I love it. It's a passion. I can do it for hours on end. So when I, create characters or anything, I think about them first. And kind of like how do I envision this person? Like, how would they, act or fight or this and that? And I think of all of that first for me. And then after that comes the voice. I feel like I can find the voice better if I do a voice for that. I find that I find the voice better when I know kind of where that character is from and where they're trying to go. So that's how I do it. So for me, because it's my thing, I probably will prepare a lot more than someone else just because it's a passion. So
I have to say, I'm going to be that someone else on that side of the coin. Most of the time when I'm moving into a character, I look for two things only. That's going to be what's their biggest strength and what's their biggest flaw. Oftentimes you can find a lot of adjectives start jumping off of both of those things, and they're often more connected than I expect them to be. But I'm not saying that prep is not the right way to go, because it absolutely is for you. Like, oh my gosh, it's an art form what you're able to do. I could never do that. It's amazing. It just, don't be afraid if you're a new person stepping in thinking you have to prepare that much.
Yeah, and I want to agree with that. I'm on the lighter side with like writing backstories generally. I think usually where I start is like thinking about just sort of I find like one thing about what my next character is. Like, I'm like, I want to play somebody who's like a really proper person, or like I want to play someone with like a strong moral point of view, or I want to play a silly fairy who sings songs. And like start from like some concept, like some feeling about a character, and then just start building around that. and then like just find like one strong point of view and then start building things around it. Like, okay, find like a strong bond with somebody, whether it's another player, someone in their past. And then it sort of depends on like what you're walking into. Are you walking into a one shot? Are you walking into a campaign that's like in a book? Because a lot of times if you're walking into a book campaign, you might want to find like some connections to things that are pre-written rather than making it all yourself. And having like your own huge backstory can sometimes then put you at conflict if you're like hoping to find that out. Whereas if you're working with someone like Chris, who wants you to write a whole backstory because that helps inhabit his world more and helps write that out.
Well, see, so I'm glad you said that, because that's actually, I like them both. So there's a place for it. So there's a lot of DMs that will literally just plan everything out, and we all know that I don't do that, right? We know that I am very organic. I improv 95% of everything, right? Because it feels more real, right? It feels more reactionary. What GW does brings a lot to the table, because then he has very rich backstory, so when we touch on it, there's a lot there. What like Nafako or like some of the other players, even Rowan, right? When you were Rowan, we had like little snippets, and we started adding things. Like once we got to a point where like, ooh, what if we did this? And we had this communication, and then all of a sudden we looped your dad in, and your mom was in there, and then like this tie with Cole, right? So there's all those cool things that we could add to something and build it organically as we go, or it's all spelled out and it works that way too. And it's beautiful to watch it happen either way. I do have one more question. This is from me. We only have 8 minutes, so this is a big one. And Em touched on this a little bit.
I actually have a question too.
You might have to.
That's fine.
So,
we'll do another. Let's do another.
This is the most important thing about roleplay, or the deepest you could ever get. We have friendships, we have family, relationships. Relationships in D&D is the most uncomfortable, the most awkward, the most challenging thing to do with players remotely or at the same table. So what are tips or anything or experiences in that regard? Like,
so romantic specifically.
Romantic specifically, like whether it's a partner, a wife, a husband, or what have you, or just a romance, right? Like there was a moment where
like it's winning the best game-breaking moment.
Kind of, but it goes both ways, because like when GW and I we role played his lady prior to the tea, he wouldn't look at me. Like I was looking at him, and I was like really trying to get in the moment, and he was like, "I'm not looking at you, Solo," and he looked over here, and he stayed in his character, which was fine. I was really just teasing him at that moment, but it's how do you allow yourself to get that way, right? Like your husband's the DM, but then you're romantically with another player, so it's you're all friends and it's all pretend, and I get it, but like you get there and you get to that believable moment, because let me tell you, from a fan and from a DM, watching players have romance makes everything more powerful. Even though GW and Anne were not romantically involved, they were like brother and sister. When she died, it hurt. Rowan and Cole, they were like, yeah, I secretly like you and I secretly like you, but they never talked about it, and then she died. And it was just before Tomb of Annihilation, so then like Josh just like let it out because he lost his chance, and then it was all these things, right? So like how do you navigate that?
For me, and I think for the table that I play at, it's all about consent. So having big discussions beforehand about like what is okay at our table, what is safe for us to engage with at our table, and like if you're setting down with a new table, there's lots of RPG consent checklists out there. Would really encourage you to like sit down with your table and do those, because it's an awesome exploration of like even content wise, what is okay, what's not okay. You want to avoid those triggers for people feeling unsafe, because we can't role play be the play component unless we're safe. You can't play unless you're safe. So like I think about Nepi and Kokanee, the character that Nepentha's married to. It's like the player and I sat down and just like we had a thing of like, hey, like, are you comfortable with this? You as the player. What's kind of going on for Kokanee at this point? What's going on for Nepi? Like, let's have an ongoing discussion about this and constantly check in with each other of like, is this okay? And what do you want to bring to your table? And I totally think you're right, Chris. Like relationships in game, like those, because, as adults our primary attachment figures as people, the people we're connected most to are our partners or our romantic interests generally. So like when you throw something in a game with romantic stakes, it's huge. I think of one of the players in our party is her character's married to the queen of the continent that we play on. And like after there's big things happen in the campaign, or if she dies or something happens, and then we bring her back, she's like, I have to call my wife. First thing, she pulls out her sending stone. She's like, I got to call my wife. I think of a huge moment that we had where her character got dominated and killed 2 of our party members. She's the paladin. She's so powerful. Oh my God, she's so powerful, and killed 2 of the people. And she, after the domination dropped, she dropped her sword and looked at us and says, I have to go home now. I have to see command right now. So it's like that bond of that relationship, that pull is so strong, and it makes the game feel so much more human. Because of course we would feel those things for our partners. So consent and depth would probably be the 2 things that I would throw forth about relationships in games.
Yeah. Absolutely. There was a constant line of communication between Josh and I with that whole navigating Rowan and Cole at the beginning. It was kind of funny, and Josh is one of my absolute dearest friends, so it made it very easy to have that discussion. It's kind of like, hey, I'm thinking this is kind of where my character's going. Where's your character going? Kind of opening that up. And of course, Josh, he's not going to give me a straight answer the first time I ask. So he's going to be like, I don't know. But then keeping it open in game and saying like, hey, are you cool with what just happened? Good. Yeah. We're fine. This is okay. Moving forward. So absolutely agree. Communication, consent. Those are kind of the big things.
Yeah. I mean, so when we still had Jessie as part of our show, when we first joined, I mean, I didn't know all of her history, but when she casually mentioned in game that her character had a fiance, who was also a woman, and she had accidentally killed, and that was a whole lot of things. And Solos has a very guilty expression, and he can just sit with that.
That was not my fault. She's a vampire, and they left her in there by herself. Not my fault.
Yeah, not at all. So, but anyway, so after that, I had left a lot of open spaces in my character, and I was like, great, I am gay in real life. I've now just fully embraced this background. And I'm bi, technically, but I'm married to a woman. Anyway, so so I after I had was like, this will be fun. I can have a whole revelation story of my character I love playing characters who are just sort of figuring themselves out. And asked her on our first break, hey, is it okay if I flirt with you, or if this is a thing? And she was like, I love in her character romance, and was like, yeah, I think we can do this. I obviously did just lose my fiance, and so we would talk back and forth because her character had a lot of emotional feelings about having killed her fiance, and really because when you play a D&D game, it happens over so much longer than usually happens in a campaign, because you play for a few hours, and then so it was all that moment had happened 6 months ago, but in game maybe only a couple weeks ago, and it's all very interesting. But
okay, so yes. we're almost out of time. GW, final question.
Oh, okay. Final question. We're gonna start with Bree first. So my question is, what is the easiest personality for you to play? What's your hardest? That's it.
Ooh. That's a good one. Personality for me is probably the connector of sorts. One who really, I would say, I see you do this a lot too, GW, wanting to be the one who goes from person to person. I like being able to be connecting to people. So whether that just means I have a really naive character who doesn't know any better and just wants to talk to everyone and get to know everything about them, or maybe it's just someone who genuinely cannot stop caring about everyone around them. I really like that. I think that's kind of I don't want to throw myself under the bus, but I'm passionate to a fault, and that can become, it's like a blessing and a curse. But the hardest personality for me, I think, is very headstrong, stubborn personalities. I'm a pushover in real life, so it's difficult for me to really stand my ground, even RPing.
Sizemore?
That's way more than one question, sir.
Well, I think it was just the same question for everybody.
Well, right? We don't have time for that, so I'll let Sizemore answer this. Yeah, we're already over time.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
I'll make it quick.
Yes.
So for me, the easiest, the one I always go to is the silly character, the comic relief. The one with the silliest voice or the most antics that causes problems for everyone else. So then the polar opposite would be the naturally good person, straight man kind of role. I could do evil, I could do silly good, I could do a mix of both. But when it comes to just like the average man hero, I tend to fall back in line with doing silly or evil and drift away.
Yeah. Well, I gotta hear everyone else's now. Damn it! So
we'll try enlightening it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I can go.
Yeah, sure.
I think the easiest for me actually probably is a bit more of that, like, the moral center. Like, I've been told I play every character morally like a paladin. This is my default, where I just, like, I have this strong moral compass, and it's really hard for me to, like, do anything that feels like it's bad or unethical. And I think also just, like, the gentle person who's like, how do you feel? And the hardest for me is anyone who's angry. I have a lot of hard times getting in touch with my, like, anger, and anyone who's intimidating. So that's it. An angry, intimidating person is the hardest character for me to play.
Awesome. Alicia.
Okay, for me, the easiest characters for me often are like Chris Sizemore or like comic relief. I like playing with the spells. I play Goldie in River Break, and she's sort of like clueless, but she means well, and she's very strong and everything, but she oftentimes does things that make no sense to anybody, but it's not stupid if it works. You know what I mean? Exactly. Or if there's a character like I played a Tabaxi in a one-off, and I sort of changed all the spells around to sound something like a cat would do. Like instead of fireball, it was furball. You know what I mean? Love it. So I did a whole bunch of things. So I like playing with the game while not endangering my team's life. The hardest characters for me to play are always ones that are very stoic and straight, because sooner or later I'm going to end up falling back into that whatever sort of, oh, she just did something. Hear me out, people. Here's the idea. And it's something really wacky or crazy, because I think it's really fun. Although I will say that piggybacking on something Lizzie said about not having to be over the top, if it's not part of your personality naturally, don't feel like you have to be like this court jester when you're playing D&D, because it's not natural for everybody. And in fact, one of the funniest things that someone ever did in a game was freaking Solo. We play, he's in River Break with me, and his character is super straight man. And one of the bigger characters was, we were walking through this underground cave or something, and one of the bigger characters rolled to do something, and he slipped and fell. And we were like, oh, I guess, like he meant to do something, but because he rolled so bad, he ended up slipping and falling. And we were like, oh, I guess you slipped and fell. And Chris's character goes, well, did you see anything while you were down there?
Yeah, he's a College of Eloquence bard, and I'm trying to play him the opposite of normal bards, but it's pretty ridiculous.
I love that.
I think I laughed for 2 days. I was in the shower laughing because of that. Like,
oh my god!
I love that.
Did you see anything while you're down there?
So good.
He might be the actual character I ever cosplay. I'm on the fence right now. I'm painting myself blue.
Do it.
Well, he's a fear bulk, so that means I have to paint everything blue. I don't want to do that.
That's right.
Emma.
I think probably the characters that I end up playing the most are like team mom, carer characters. The one who's like, okay, I have to make sure you're all safe, even if I'm like not like it. Nepentha's a cleric, so like I'm just like, everyone has to stay alive. That's my job. But inevitably, my characters always end up being the like person who just cares a lot and will sacrifice herself to save other people. That's not like me at all. No, I don't know what you all are looking at. But I think the characters that I find the hardest to play are characters that are aloof and disengaged. Like that are like keeps everything really close to their chest, don't trust people. Those characters I find quite hard to play. Because inevitably I just end up opening them up and be like, I really care about you people in this party. Yeah, and start just like, wearing my heart on my sleeve. But yeah, I think that would be my answer to that.
For me,
yes, GW.
For me, the easiest thing for me to play, I'm kind of almost your polar opposite, M. I love the freedom of being kind of aloof, kind of somewhat of a trickster, kind of just kind kind of going with the wind. I'm naturally chaotic good. Like every day, I just reek of chaotic good. Ooh,
And see, I'm sitting over here with my lawful neutral. So like,
the hardest character,
Casually chaotic good.
the hardest characters for me to play are the super serious, creepy, scary characters. I've never really been good. That's why I'm a creepy character in our friend Logan's Merc board game, because I'm kind of stepping out of my comfort zone.
You're the most creepy character in Logan's game, and it's
I'm
beautiful.
trying so hard. It's hard.
It doesn't look like it. It's ridiculous.
Live your best creepy life. You're doing great.
Yeah.
Totally.
So that's it for me.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much for being here for this amazing panel, sharing all your points. Thank you all for all the amazing questions below. So go ahead and hit Legends in the chat, Legends with an S. I am giving away another Yeti Mini. Anybody in the panel can also submit as well.
What's that? Hey, y'all.
So I will stop the stream here in a second. I will start up the Legends of Shalgal timer, and we'll be back in about 25 minutes for the very first episode of that show. I'm going to stay in the chat, answer questions. Y'all are more than welcome to stay as well, but we'll see you guys later.
Take care, folks. Bye.
Thank you.